The Big Bear is returning to Baton Rouge. It's Locked on LSU. Let's get it.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thrilled to have you aboard with us here. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts, and of course, available on YouTube as well. So if you're listening on Pod, please subscribe. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we go live, and please subscribe up on the YouTube channel as well. So a ton to get to. Day 2 of SEC Media Days in the rearview mirror. We'll get to that. A 5-star cornerback, the number one cornerback in the country, DJ Pickett. It is his decision day. We'll have the absolute latest intel there. But we begin with massive news for LSU baseball. So the final day of the MLB draft is come and gone, and LSU got incredible news. We are, of course, today brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Bear Jones has made it official. He's headed back to LSU. So I'm not sure this MLB draft could have gone better for Jay Johnson if he had scripted it himself. You end up getting William Schmidt, the number one right-handed pitcher in the country, to forego millions and show up on LSU's campus. You end up getting Michael Braswell, your starting shortstop, back as well, who was your second leading hitter in conference play behind Ashton Larson. And you find out on Wednesday, with the draft coming and going without Bear Jones being selected, that the sophomore rising junior first baseman power hitter will in fact return for his third season in Baton Rouge. Now, I want to be clear. The fact that Bear Jones wasn't drafted does not mean that he wasn't worthy of a pick in the top 20 rounds of the draft, just to be very clear about that. But the way the MLB draft works is different than every other draft. Effectively, Bear Jones had a number in mind that he would sign for, and no doubt his phone rang throughout this draft, and teams would call him and offer him a certain number, and if it was lower than he wanted, he was willing to pass. That's the point in having leverage. You'll hear people say all the time when it comes to the draft, players having leverage, underclassmen having leverage. Their leverage is they can go back to school if they don't like the number you give them. When you're a senior, for example, like Nate Ackenhausen, who was a 10th round pick, he was a senior sign. No doubt he got less than whatever his slot value was because he was a senior sign. He had no leverage. He couldn't tell a team, give me more or I'll go back to school. Bear Jones has leverage because as a draft-eligible sophomore, not only could he sign as a sophomore, he could also go back to school and still have leverage as a junior. So there is a risk for Jared Jones. He's going to come back to LSU, and there isn't Tommy White batting in front of him, so he doesn't necessarily have protection in the lineup. And if he hits less than 300 and less than 28 homers like he did as a sophomore, then maybe that doesn't help him increase. Remember, defensively, he is a one-trick pony. Jared Jones is a right-handed hitting first baseman. He's not going to get more athletic and become an outfielder or a shortstop or a third baseman. That's what he does. He's going to be a right-handed hitting first base / DH, and that's it. So there is a ceiling on what he can give, which means his value doesn't necessarily go up. But ultimately for Jared Jones, if he comes back to LSU, decides to play another season and hits 35 homers, let's say, hits 300 again, he further solidifies himself as someone that can hit for power and for average, and maybe he finds himself in the top 5 rounds, and this is a guy that gets close to $1 million, maybe as a junior. We'll see how that all plays out. But ultimately for Jared Jones, this was an opportunity to come back to school, to help his team win a championship, and maybe increase his draft stock. So when you look at Jared Jones not getting drafted, Michael Braswell also going unsigned and announcing on Twitter that he's coming back, Blaze Priester, the junior college catcher who also went undrafted. Look at what LSU's infield looks like. Remember, 2 weeks ago, or even at the end of the season, we were thinking LSU's losing Travinsky and Milazzo, very likely Bear Jones, possibly Braswell, Tommy White. Your entire infield, except for Stephen Milam, looked like it was gone. Well, now, after the draft process has played out, Bear Jones is back. Michael Braswell is back. Stephen Milam is back. Blaze Priester went unpicked, so he's your starting catcher with a ton of pop in the bat and a better defensive player than Brady Neal. Cade Arambidi, the catching prospect out of Houston, is coming to campus. So you get two better catchers, all-around catchers, than what you had a season ago. You still got to figure out whoever is going to be your starting third baseman, but Daniel Dickinson from Utah Valley is a day one starter. You've also got Tanner Reeves, a JUCO infielder, Michael Ryan from Rummel. You have so much talent on that infield, forcing competition, that if someone pushes Braswell or Milam or Dickinson, whoever it may be, like, now you have great options on that infield to be coupled with Jake Brown, Ashton Larson, Josh Pearson, Derek Curiel, Chris Stanfield, all in the outfield. All of a sudden, this is an LSU team, a lineup that looks formidable to be partnered with the LSU rotation, which includes, of course, Chase Shores coming off of injury, Cade Anderson in his sophomore year, William Schmidt showing up on campus, and then the 8 right-handed transfer pitchers that you added, minus Luke Hayden, who signed. So 7 guys, including, some of the biggest names, like Devin Sheeran. There's 100 from the right side from Mount St. Mary's. Zach Cohen, who was the Friday night guy at Wofford. I mean, all of a sudden you look up Jacob Myers from Nichols, and you have a loaded pitching staff, a loaded lineup that returns a guy that hit 28 homers for you last year, and you're adding a bunch of guys that were also power bats out of the portal in Dickinson and Eddie Yaman and Luis Hernandez. I mean, Beck as well from Incarnate Word. I mean, you look at this team right now, Dalton Beck, and this is a team that they solidified and fortified with a bunch of power bats, returning Bear Jones as your biggest power bat, a ton of power arms as well. You can understand, even before this draft, why all of the Baseball America writers were looking at LSU saying, this is a College World Series team. Every single D1 baseball writer projected LSU, and it's way too early College World Series projections, the 8 for Omaha, in Omaha next year. And that was before you knew Bear Jones was coming back. That was before you knew you had William Schmidt. That was before you knew that Michael Braswell was coming back. That was before you knew for certain Blaze Priester was coming to campus. An incredible 3 days for LSU. A net win for Jay Johnson as his program got much, much stronger over these 3 days of the Major League Baseball draft. So now for Jay Johnson, the onus is on seeing if you can add maybe another left-handed pitcher in the portal and some catching depth. But even if you don't do that, you still feel amazing about where this team is headed into the 2025 season, a season that could very well and should very well land LSU right back in the College World Series, vying for national championship number 8 for this program. Okay, the MLB draft in the rearview mirror. As we learn more about this roster moving forward, we'll certainly have it for you. Now, Wednesday is decision day for a 5-star prospect, the number 1 cornerback in the country. I have the latest on DJ Pickett. We'll get to that as we continue. Locked on LSU, your team every day. I love sports. Love them so much. Really never want them to stop, just like you. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the FanDuel app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all summer long. So head over to FanDuel. Do it right now. Head over to FanDuel and start making the most out of your summer. As a matter of fact, open up the FanDuel app right now. Absolutely incredible opportunities. And you look at those boosts. Bet Worldwide Racing tonight. The great incentives where if you bet $5, you can get $200. All of the conditions apply. You can see that right there. There's so many different Major League Baseball boosts. I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to check out the boosts every single day. Take advantage of them. If FanDuel is going to give you free boosts, use them every single day. Visit FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Wednesday is decision day for DJ Pickett. DJ Pickett, as you may well know, is a 5-star, the number 1 cornerback in the country, a consensus number 1 cornerback in the country. He's out of the state of Florida. And the backstory is, of course, Corey Raymond was recruiting DJ Pickett when Raymond was at the University of Florida. 6'4", 180-pounder. A consensus 5-star prospect on 3, 24/7. ESPN rivals all have Pickett as a 5-star. In the composite, he's the number 6 overall prospect at any position, the number 2 cornerback. 3 of the 4 scouting services rate DJ Pickett as the number 1 corner in the country. On 3, ESPN rivals, all of them as the number 1 corner. 24/7 as the number 3 corner, which is why in the composite he's number 2. But by all accounts, DJ Pickett is the best cornerback in the country for this recruiting cycle, and he's going to make his decision known. Now, it's interesting that DJ Pickett has made it known that he looks at Corey Raymond, and has said Corey Raymond is a relationship like no other. DJ Pickett's words. So you would think with a healthy NIL offer and someone like Corey Raymond at LSU, that LSU would be the front runner. And there was some thought that DJ Pickett would be the front runner till Oregon stepped up. And of course, we know, in the last week or so, Rick Neuheisel made a comment about Oregon having unlimited NIL. So could this be a situation where DJ Pickett is looking for the highest NIL deal possibly coming from the Oregon Ducks? Well, I had a chance to visit on Radio Row at SEC Football Media Days with Billy Embody. Billy Embody of On 3, the Bengal Tiger who covers LSU, gave us the absolute latest information on DJ Pickett and what he might be thinking at this point in his recruitment.
Yeah, and Corey's been recruiting him since his days at Florida, and he's from Tampa. He's from right down the road from where Corey was in Gainesville, and even when Corey was there was always a thought that he was going to go out of state. That's why Miami is still having to swing and try and find a way to keep him in state so hard, because he has had his eyes outside of the state, whether it be Oregon, whether it be some other players in his recruitment throughout. But Oregon and LSU have emerged as the 2 top programs to land him. And, in a battle like this, where there is so much at stake for a Mario Cristobal, when Oregon has pushed so many chips in on a DJ Pickett and Corey Raymond too, Corey has really pushed a lot of chips in on DJ Pickett. It's so important that they find a way to come away with him, because he is an instant impact player. He's all of 6'4". He's got all the measurables. He plays both ways. He is a stud. And when it comes down to his decision, his father's told us at On 3, it's a lot of back and forth. And you know what that means whenever you hear that. For the most part, it's, well, what's the NIL opportunity going to be? And I don't think he's necessarily a true highest bidder type of player. Okay. Because I do feel like he's got some good relationships across the board. So it's weighing that. It's weighing going to the opposite corner of the country in Oregon, all the way away from his family. It's going and playing with family, Cannon Pickett, his cousin at Miami. That's an opportunity that's there. And then it's LSU, which is kind of a mix between, Corey Raymond, who's recruited you for so long. He's developed you. He's had help from the entire staff. He's had NFL talent from LSU reaching out to DJ and recruiting him and sharing why this would be a good opportunity for him. And LSU, I think, with this class, we've heard about NIL this with the transfer portal, but you don't have the number 1 overall prospect in the country and Bryce Underwood committed without a strong NIL opportunity. And I think this is one of those players that LSU is going all out for in that realm. So I don't think that's going to be ultimately what leads him away from LSU. I think it's going to be a matter of balancing those things, but he can make a pretty penny wherever he goes.
How do you think, or do you have a feeling how the decision goes on Wednesday?
Steve Wiltfong put a pick in for Oregon earlier this morning, and I do feel like they've had a little bit more confidence over the last several weeks versus LSU and Miami, who have done well. They keep in constant contact, all of those things. But we've also seen a lot of prospects as of late kind of play a little bit of a game and end up going somewhere else. Like, look at C.J. Wiley, 4-star wide receiver out of Georgia, sure. LSU legacy. LSU and Georgia kind of thought they were battling it out. Well, he ends up committing to the Seminoles. So there are some other examples throughout this cycle, and maybe DJ's playing a little bit of intrigue because there's not many times anymore when people don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
And DJ is a super quiet kid. He doesn't really do many of the interviews himself unless you catch him in person. But he's really high on these three programs, and it wouldn't shock me if he went anywhere. But right now, Oregon does seem like the one with a buzz.
So that would be a major disappointment if DJ Pickett ends up picking Oregon, but it looks like it's trending in that direction. For whatever it's worth, Jabari Antoine at a New Iberia, he's expected to make his announcement this coming weekend. And according to Billy Embody, it's looking like that's trending toward Miami for Jabari Antoine. I know there's a lot of LSU fans that look at what's going on at the cornerback situation as LSU's gotten in the mix for some big-name prospects and has come up empty so far. And we'll see what happens with DJ Pickett and Jabari Antoine. And they'll look at Corey Raymond and say he's lost his touch and all the things that you've heard. When DJ Pickett, the number one corner in the country, says his relationship with Corey Raymond is, quote, like no other, I don't know what else Corey Raymond could do. I mean, he got LSU in the mix for the number one cornerback in the country and all these prospects. He got him on campus, got official visits, got crystal ball projections for LSU. But ultimately, if Oregon is going to outspend and other places are going to outspend, I just don't know what else you can do at this point. Again, we'll see. Billy Embody alluded to it there. Maybe there's a surprise, as we have seen already in this recruiting cycle with some pretty big-name prospects. But the one thing I know for certain is the top two uncommitted prospects at corner in the country are Pickett and Jabari Antoine. LSU had Antoine committed at one point, was thought to be the front runner for Pickett at another, and they may miss on both of them. And if they do, it's very unsettling because your talent at corner is not elite. And if you want to improve, scheme coaching can only do so much. You got to have the Jimmies and the Joes. And LSU right now has got to prove they can get those guys back on campus, because right now there's not a single draftable prospect in LSU secondary as of right now. As of today, you got to change that on the recruiting trail. We'll see if the Tigers can maybe make some hay on Wednesday and get DJ Pickett as a part of this LSU class. Okay, so I had a chance to visit with Jackson Arnold, the new quarterback at Oklahoma. What did he have to say about playing in Death Valley this year? We'll get to that here in just a second. But if you're watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day and you got to turn down the volume because of all the shouting, make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jackson Arnold, his comments on playing in Tiger Stadium next, and a recap of SEC Media Days Day 2. You won't want to miss it right here on Locked On LSU, your team every day. Georgia, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Missouri all took their shot at Radio Row and taking their turn at SEC Football Media Days on day 2. If you're an LSU fan, you might be most interested in the conversation I had with Oklahoma quarterback Jackson Arnold. So remember, Oklahoma's in a fascinating spot. Coming in from the Big 12, all the success they've had historically and certainly in the Big 12 over the last 25 years. Coming up short on the championship front, the national championship front, but a perennial playoff team and a Big 12 champion. Oklahoma is coming into the SEC, and Brent Venables was pretty clear that they're not scared of coming into the SEC. His words were they're taking this challenge head on. in the Southeastern Conference? Well, I had a chance to visit on Radio Row with Jackson Arnold. And Jackson Arnold is a fascinating story because this was a 5-star quarterback that Oklahoma was thrilled to have. But remember, Dillon Gabriel was their quarterback a year ago, who led Oklahoma to a 10-2 record. But with Jackson Arnold waiting in the wing, Oklahoma made the decision to move on essentially from Dillon Gabriel and hand the reins to Jackson Arnold. So Gabriel is now at Oregon, where he is the Heisman frontrunner. That means there is tremendous expectation on this Oklahoma football team because Oklahoma essentially bid farewell to a quarterback that won 10 games to turn the reins over to a younger player. So what happens if Oregon has a phenomenal season and Oklahoma doesn't? Well, one thing that LSU fans are certainly going to be keeping a keen eye on are the Sooners, because LSU and Oklahoma may end up forming and budding an organic rivalry, because LSU and Oklahoma are set to play on that final weekend of the regular season, that Thanksgiving weekend in Tiger Stadium. Next year, that game will be played in Norman, and this could end up being a budding rivalry, as neither team is playing their historic rivalry on the final weekend anymore. Of course, Bedlam doesn't exist, and LSU's never had an historic rivalry in that final weekend. So LSU and Oklahoma could very well be paired now moving forward in that final weekend. So I asked Jackson Arnold about the possibility of playing in Tiger Stadium. Give a listen to what he said.
Yeah, everyone I've talked to today, like, they asked me the question, like, which one are you looking forward to, which away game are you looking forward to the most? And my answer is Death Valley, for sure. I mean, Death Valley at night, you've heard about it. Never played there. I've never been there at night, so I'm super pumped up for that game.
I hope it's a night game.
Yeah, I do too.
You might want to be careful what you wish for, too.
But I mean, just like from an atmosphere, like,
oh, of course,
that's gonna be sick, you know.
Yeah.
If we score, you might go quiet, you know. Like, you just love that. It's gonna be awesome.
Be careful what you wish for, man. Night game in Tiger Stadium could be tough on Oklahoma. And I think one of the most fascinating storylines in the SEC this year is going to be that second tier. Most everyone agrees, Georgia, Texas, playoff teams. What about the next group? Alabama, LSU, Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee, those 5. Which teams end up earning a roster spot, team or teams? Well, I didn't mention Oklahoma, but Oklahoma fans have dramatic expectations. Something I always look at when doing a preseason prediction is fewest questions against the most manageable schedule. Well, look at what Oklahoma has. They open up against Temple, then Houston, Tulane, then they host Tennessee, then they're at Auburn. And that's when things start to get hairy. An open date before they play the Red River rivalry, South Carolina at home, then look at how they finish. At Ole Miss, Maine, at Missouri, open date, Bama, at LSU. So even if they start strong, the Texas game is going to be a challenge. At Ole Miss, at Missouri, Bama, at LSU. You could find 5 losses right there for Oklahoma down the stretch. A lot of toss-up games, but a gigantic challenge. Now, Oklahoma's former quarterback is Josh Heupel, who led them to the national championship back in the 2000 college football season. Heupel, of course, is the head coach at Tennessee. Look at the contrast from Oklahoma of what Tennessee faces. Chattanooga, NC State, Kent State, at Oklahoma, swing game. Open date, then they're at Arkansas, home against Florida. They play Alabama, and that's the really tough stretch. But look at how they finish. Kentucky, Mississippi State, at Georgia's tough, UTEP, and at Vandy. If Tennessee can beat Oklahoma, even if they lose at Georgia, they've got a game to play with. You lose at Georgia and only one other, you're a 10-2 team. You're very likely in the college football playoff. And the other thing, too, is if you look at Missouri, another team that took their turn today or on Tuesday at SEC Football Media Days, Missouri, an incredibly manageable schedule. Yes, you lose a first-round draft pick on the defensive line. Yes, you're going to lose your all-SEC running back. Yes, you lost Blake Baker, but you return your quarterback, Brady Cook, return Luther Burden. There's a lot of talent there. And look at this schedule for Missouri. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vandy. A total cakewalk through September before an open date, and then you go to Kyle Field. Yes, it's on the road, but you get an open date before you go to Kyle Field. Then you're at UMass. I can't imagine why Missouri's playing in Amherst, Massachusetts, but again, a winnable game. Then you're home against Auburn before going to Alabama. It is so not only realistic, but likely that Missouri is 7-0 going to Tuscaloosa. And even if you stub your toe there, you get an open date before you come home to play Oklahoma. Then you're at South Carolina, at Mississippi State, and finish against Arkansas. 10-2 for Missouri against that schedule is very, very realistic. So when I look at it, I would be certain that there's going to be at least 3 SEC teams that make the college football playoff. The question is, if you have a fourth at 10-2, can you get 4 in? If tiebreakers don't necessarily matter in head-to-head, maybe that Tennessee-Oklahoma game is a huge swing game. Maybe Missouri against Alabama could matter. We'll see. But Tennessee and Missouri and Ole Miss have insanely manageable schedules, more so than Alabama, LSU, and Oklahoma, to be certain. So if you're looking at teams that are very likely or more likely to be playoff teams, look at who has the fewest questions against the most manageable schedule. And teams like Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Missouri check all those boxes. College football season is almost here, y'all. SEC Media Days, day 3 on Wednesday, a massive day. Kalen DeBoer at Alabama taking his first turn. Texas in their first turn at SEC Football Media Days. Jeff Lebby in Mississippi State for his first time. And Billy Napier for what could be his last time at SEC Football Media Days in Florida. Wednesday is a massive day. We'll have it all covered for you right here on Locked on LSU. So if you have not done so yet, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. We'll look forward to having a day 3 of SEC Media Days recap for you on Wednesday here, or excuse me, I guess on Thursday from Wednesday's SEC Football Media Days. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day.